scraps diversity-based hiring targets. That caught my attention. Came out just about an hour ago now. It was updated from Reuters. Alphabet's Google is scrapping its goal to hire more employees from underrepresented groups and is reviewing some of its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, joining a slew of U.S. businesses scaling back diversity initiatives. Quote, in 2020, we set aspirational hiring goals and focused on growing our offices outside California and New York to improve representation, Fiona Ciccone, Alphabet's chief people officer. The what? Alphabet's chief people officer. Is that an HR manager? Here's my first thought on that sentence. We focused on growing our offices outside California and New York to improve representation. Where? In red states? I don't think you did. Did you improve your representation with conservatives, Republicans, Trump supporters? I'm not sure you did. California and New York already have, I would think, a lot of diversity there. I'm not sure where you were going from California and New York in that regard, but okay. But in the future, we will no longer have aspirational goals, she says. I guess she was upset. This was a memo to other staff members at Google, I suppose, which Reuters got a hold of. But in the future, we will no longer have aspirational goals. Oh, boo-hoo. Google had been for years among the most vocal companies pushing for more inclusive policies in the wake of protests against the police killings of George Floyd and other black Americans in 2020. Do we need to relitigate the facts of that case? I'm aware there were convictions made, but there were also threats of mass violence if said convictions were not made, and a medical examiner's report that calls an awful lot of that into question. Like the 400 gallons of fentanyl in the man's body. But that being said, I'm not saying the police acted without flaw or perfectly or whatever, but let's not forget that that man also had a very lengthy criminal record, including of sexual assault nature and many other things. And they built statues to him, apparently, after this, because that's the kind of person that we want to celebrate in America, or at least we did back in 2020. I don't know which other black Americans we're referring to here in 2020 in officer-involved shootings, but I can tell you, somebody who has watched a ton of police interaction, body cam footage, and they're all over YouTube. It's fascinating to watch, to see, police procedure, what laws are and how they work. And I got into it after a lot of this stuff happened to educate myself on it. And wouldn't you know it, probably like 99.9% of those engagements are lawful on the part of the police officers involved. Not all, but the vast majority of them are. But to continue on with the article, in 2020, CEO Sundar Pichai, Pikachu, we'll just call him Pikachu, set a goal to have 30% more of its leaders be from underrepresented groups. I guess they mean to have 30% or more of its leaders be from underrepresented groups by 2025. At the time, about 96% of Google's U.S. leaders were white or Asian, and 73% globally were men. Oh, no. See, they've lumped Asian folks in with white guys. I'm sorry. To my Asian friends out there, I'm sorry. You're screwed now. In 2021, it began to evaluate executive performance on team diversity and inclusion after a prominent leader of artificial intelligence research said the company abruptly fired her after she criticized its diversity efforts. Okay. Google's chief diversity officer, Melanie Parker, said in a 2024 interview with BBC that the company had hit 60% of its 5-year goals. Again, here's we can relitigate the issue of hiring people for reasons other than job performance, which is always a recipe for disaster. Every time. And that's borne out to be true over and over and over again. But here we go. Google pumped God knows how many billions of dollars down this toilet. And has it really improved things at Google? I would say probably not. I don't know if there's a metric for this, but I would love to see it if there was one. On Wednesday, the Alphabet spokesperson said the company did not have updated figures regarding those goals. Now, here's where this story really kind of hits. And we've seen this from a number of other companies so far. Just in the past 6 to 8 months, we've seen a lot of these companies scaling back on these DEI efforts and the expenditures. Alphabet's annual filing with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission on Wednesday showed that it omitted a line saying, this was a line that was previously in all these reports. It omitted the line that previously stated, quote, committed to making diversity, equity, and inclusion part of everything that we do, and to growing a workforce that is representative of the users we serve. That statement appeared in annual reports by Google from 2021 to 2023. The spokesperson said that the line was removed to reflect its review of DEI programs. Now, look, let's be really, really clear on something. And this is what's so ridiculous. The statement in and of itself, committed to making diversity, equity, and inclusion part of everything we do, and to growing a workforce that is representative of the users that we serve. I want y'all to think about this for a minute. When you go to an auto mechanic, an oil change place, a bank, anywhere else, do you care when you walk in that your mechanic is a straight white male or a black guy or whatever? No, you care that you have a mechanic that is honest and capable of doing the work. It is not going to cheat you, screw you out of money, and is going to fix your car and not break it further. That's all I care about in a mechanic. If I go into a bank, I want to know that the person I'm dealing with is also honest, and I want to know that the bank is going to give me the lowest interest rate possible on my loan and the highest interest rate possible on my savings account. I don't care what they look like at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. What matters is business and money. Somewhere along the line, though, we got this idea that we had to hire people that look like other people that we do business with because everybody in society is so shallow as the people on the left who believe this crap that people can only identify with other people who have the same sexual preferences, who have the same gender or racial identity. Whatever. And what it's created is it's created a backlash that has basically sunk DEI altogether. Anytime that you're going to use racism or sexism as a tool of affirmative action to say that, oh no, we're putting this in to hire folks like this out of quote unquote fairness, this is where things will fall apart on you very quickly, because you're going to screw over people that are deserving of being hired, that have the experience and have the merit to have the job, but they're going to be passed over or terminated in some cases because they don't fit the mold of what they want. Now, business can do whatever it wants, but don't try to sit here and tell me that hiring based on gender and racial identity is somehow going to be a net positive in terms of bottom line return for a company. It's just not. It's never been proven to be the case insofar as I've ever been aware. But continuing on with the article here, I want to go through some more of this because there was something interesting here. I kind of had to laugh, and I believe it was in this article. Google, which sells cloud computing and other services to the U.S. government, also said that it was reviewing policy changes by President Donald Trump aimed at curbing DEI in the government and among federal contractors. There it is. Google is a federal contractor. They do a lot of business with the U.S. government. I'm sure Apple does too. And I'm sure Elon Musk does, and a lot of other big tech companies out there. And what was the edict? To review any federal contractors as well that have implemented race-based or gender-based or LGBTQ-based hiring practices. Meaning, in other words, we need to review not only the federal government, but any contractors that we do business with that may be in violation of federal law. Because when you hire based on race and you hire based on gender and you hire, you're violating federal law. Y'all remember that one, right? So Google apparently decided we got to start scaling back on the language. Now, this doesn't mean that necessarily Google's going to get rid of all this. I'd be kind of surprised if they really do. It all depends on how much of an audit that the federal government is really going to want to perform on its contractors that it does business with. Because we're a federal contractor, our teams are also evaluating changes to our programs required to comply with recent court decisions and U.S. executive orders on this topic. The company will maintain internal employee groups. Get ready. Google will maintain internal employee groups like, quote, trans at Google. I can't even say this, but that was Black Googler Network. What is a Black Googler? That sounds like a racist term right there. And the Disability Alliance, and I'm sure they have a lot more really, really funny names. Remember some of all the groups that were at Ubisoft? Like the Black Trans Lesbian Game Developers Alliance. I mean, they had something for everybody there. It was obscene, which the company says, Google says, has set informed decisions around product and policies. See, again, just like Ubisoft, just like all these other companies where this has failed miserably, it's one thing if you want to let your employees have their own personal affinity groups where, hey, we can hang out with like-minded or, if you really want, like skin-colored other employees. I'm sure Google probably even has a constituency of furries at their company and a group for it. The problem is when you let all these groups do exactly what it says, which so many companies have done, and that is it allows them to inform decisions around products and policies, meaning these groups have a seat at the table to tell Google, in this case, how they should make and implement and sell or what have you their products based on their race, their sexual orientation, or their gender proclivities. Again, I'm not sure how that helps make a better product, but this has been the problem with DEI. When you let all the crazy people run the show, you're going to wind up with less than stellar products each and every time. The Wall Street Journal first reported on Wednesday about the memo. Facebook parent Meta Platforms in January said in an internal memo it was ending its DEI programs, including those for hiring, training, and picking suppliers. Amazon also said it was winding down outdated programs and materials related to representation and inclusion in a memo to its employees, seen by Reuters. Conservative groups, fortified by a 2023 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that invalidated affirmative action in university admissions, have condemned DEI programs and have threatened litigation against companies implementing them. And that's really what this boils down to. These companies know, and they should have known from the beginning, that this just kind of doesn't work. You cannot decide that, well, you're not supposed to racially discriminate unless you do it against white dudes, straight white dudes, especially straight white Republican dudes. Then it's okay. Except it isn't. They're finding that out now. I want to play this clip from the gang at Yahoo Finance. I'm going to put the headphones in so I don't give you a blast echo. That said, I like the team at Yahoo Finance. I do watch their clips kind of regularly. Let's take a listen here and see what they have to say.
We celebrate the power brokers in business, the executives, entrepreneurs, proven change makers who would advance economy and society. And in addition to individuals that we're highlighting, it also takes companies unwavering from their efforts for diversity, inclusion, and equity. DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, they seek to correct some of the long-standing discrimination experienced by people of color and LGBTQ+ workers in the workplace. That discrimination, according to Citigroup, cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion between 2000 and 2020. Despite a quantifiable economic...
Now look, that's... Let's go back. This is one of the things that I really wanted to just beat up on.
That discrimination, according to Citigroup, cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion between 2000 and 2020.
Now, bullshit. Bullshit. Total made up bullshit. I see people in the chat. I glanced over. Now, how did they figure that out? Exactly. Same way they keep figuring out that every 5 years, if we don't do something about global warming, that everything's going to be underwater in 5 years. And that 5 years has been going on since 1987. It's the same kind of crap. They don't know anything. Here's the deal. What it looks good on paper is because it's coming from Citigroup. But I can promise you, if I were to go pull this stupid study that was probably funded by U.S. aid, I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek as a joke, but watch it actually be true. The U.S. economy could have added $16 trillion if it had fixed all of its inequality problems in the U.S. Gaps in wages, education, housing, and investment had been closed. Basically, if we had instituted socialism or communism completely, if we had just let the government direct every dollar to make everything fair and equitable, we could have added $16 trillion to the U.S. economy. I mean, this is just a Karl Marx wet dream of nothing. It's a bunch of crap. But it comes from Citigroup, and I bet you anything that Citigroup contracted with a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting firm to come up with this crap report. So this is the pushback right now. We could have, if only we just do this, if only we fix this, if only we spend a little bit more money here, blah, 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 blah. You know the old saying, there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics.
Despite a quantifiable economic impact stemming from racism and discrimination, early in Trump's return to the...
Despite a quantifiable, again, the quantifiable thing is this highly suspect...
Quantifiable economic impact cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion between 2000 and 2020.
Again, the quantifiable thing is this highly questionable study.
Despite a quantifiable economic impact stemming from racism and discrimination,
says you,
early in Trump's return to the White House, he sought to reverse initiatives such as racial bias training at work, diversity, equity, and inclusion offices and programs, and a 1965 executive order establishing non-discriminatory hiring practices for federal contractors. However, some businesses are publicly standing by their own diversity initiatives and values. When discussing the matter with Yahoo Finance at the World Economic Forum, NASDAQ CEO Adina Friedman had this to say.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum, a bastion of capitalism and freedom.
For NASDAQ, we're very proud of what we do. We're very comfortable and confident in what we do. We feel very good about the results that we've been able to achieve in terms of creating that culture of inclusivity and belonging. And I think a lot of companies feel the same way I do.
You know, you're the president of NASDAQ, honey. Part of me, listening to her now, makes me wonder, her saying this stuff with a straight face, if she didn't get the job because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she white, but she's not a dude. We wanted to create this atmosphere of diversity and inclusion and belonging. Why do I need that at the NASDAQ? You know what I want at NASDAQ? I want you to do Wall Street stock stuff. I can't. Oh, God. It's too much.
And it's just going to be a little bit quieter in how they implement.
It's just going to be a little quieter in how they implement. Listen to her again. Listen to where she accidentally says that last part.
We feel very good about the results that we've been able to achieve in terms of creating that culture of inclusivity and belonging. And I think a lot of companies feel the same way I do. And it's just going to be a little bit quieter in how they implement.
It's going to be a little bit quieter in how they implement. The head of the NASDAQ, just told you at the World Economic Forum in an interview with Yahoo Finance that it's still going to be there. We're just going to lie to shareholders. It's going to be quieter in how we break the law. We're still going to break the law. We're still going to hire based on race. We're still going to hire people based on sexual orientation or psychiatric malfunctions. We're still going to break the law, but we're not going to be celebrating it as much. It's like O.J. Simpson jumping up and down saying, well, yeah, I killed Nicole, but I didn't brag about it. Oh, these people.
JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon also reaffirmed his commitment to diversity and inclusion at Davos in the face of shareholder activist attempts to disband programs. And it's not only executives who are pushing back here. Costco shareholders, they voted to block an anti-DEI proposal from a conservative firm, the National Center for Public Policy Research. 98% of shareholders who voted chose to defend existing diversity policies.
Here's the thing. I don't have this. I need to go back and look this up. People have been talking about this thing with Costco. I want you guys, because you guys out there in this audience right now, y'all have been through this with me before. Because we cover Disney and Warner Brothers and Paramount. You know, every year that these companies, they have their annual shareholder meeting. Shareholder proposals are brought forth. And what happens? 99% of the time, proposals that are made by shareholders usually get defeated because the board of directors recommends to all shareholders to vote against it. Because generally speaking, if a shareholder is proposing something, it's usually something that the board doesn't like. You know, increased transparency for this or that, or reviewing executive pay with reductions that they want. And the problem is the Joe average shareholder out there gets their ballot in the mail, or they go do it online. If they do it at all, and most of them don't, most of the individual ones don't, and they vote the way the board has the proxy pre-filled. This is the way we recommend that you vote. If you want to change it, you can vote how you want, but this is how we would recommend that you vote. This is the recommended vote from your board. What do most Joe average people do? Well, these are the guys that are running the company that I own stock in, so I'll trust their decisions, and boop. And also, when they say 98% of shareholders, I highly doubt that 98% of shareholders voted. They could have. I don't know the makeup of Costco, although I would guess that Costco is probably overwhelmingly owned by big institutionals like most Fortune 500 companies. Yes, probably primarily owned by places like BlackRock and Vanguard, just because of the scale and scope of the size of the indexed S&P index funds that they have. That's where the bulk of their power comes from. Obviously, somebody made a proposal to end DEI. It obviously did not come from the board. Otherwise, it would have passed overwhelmingly. A shareholder made that proposal, or a small shareholder. Might have been a small investment firm, might have been an individual. I just don't know. I haven't looked it up, but it was obviously something not put forth by the board. So therefore, the chances that it was going to succeed were probably slim to none. That's something that's going to happen from the company itself, if it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these companies are going to announce that they're going to be scrapping these programs, but many of them will probably still try to implement some degree of racial or gender discrimination because that's what they want to do. They can keep doing it at their own peril. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more Department of Justice investigations on some of these companies that are doing it because people now, especially, are going to feel much more comfortable coming forward and talking to an attorney or to somebody at the DOJ and saying, hey, look, I was fired. I was passed over for a promotion, and I can prove factually that I was passed over because I was a white guy. And here's a memo that the office sent out saying that they only wanted to interview black lesbian women for the job. It's going to happen.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.